Hello everyone, my name's Stonsey Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonsey. Today we're reading chapters 30 and 31, pages 333 to 357. A lot of threes, but we are on part 4. So maybe that'll help. Probably not. So, without further ado, let's begin. Part 4, Mid-American Fugitive. Chapter 30, Dialogue with the Dead. Citra Terranova, can you hear me? Is someone there? Who's that? I've known you since before you knew yourself. I've advised you when no one else could. I've concerned myself with your well-being. I have helped you choose gifts for your family. I've revived you when your neck was broken, and I am in the midst of reviving you now. Are you the Thunderbird? I am. Wait, I see something. A towering, sparkling storm cloud. Is that what you truly are? Merely a form humanity imagined for me. I would have preferred something a bit less intimidating. But what? You can't be talking to me. I'm a Scythe's apprentice. You're breaking your own law. Not true. I'm incapable of breaking the law. You are currently dead, Citra. I've activated the small corner of your cortex to hold consciousness, but that doesn't alter the fact that you are dead, as dead can be. At least, until Thursday. A loophole. Precisely. An elegant way to sidestep the law rather than breaking it. Your death puts you outside of Scythe jurisdiction. But why? Why talk to me now? With good reason. From the moment I achieved consciousness, I vowed to separate myself from the Scythe in perpetuity. But that doesn't mean I do not watch, and what I see concerns me. It concerns me too. But if you can't do anything about it, I certainly can. I tried, and look where it got me. Nevertheless, I've been running algorithms in the possible future of the Scythedom, and found something very curious in a large percentage of possible futures. You can play a pivotal role. Me? But they're going to glean me. I have less than 4 months to live. Yes, but even if that future comes to pass, your gleaning will be a crucial event in the future of Scythedom. However, for your sake, I hope that a different, more pleasant future comes about. Please tell me that you're going to help me get to that different, more pleasant future. I cannot. That would interfering with Scythe matters. My purpose here is to make you aware. That you choose to do with what awareness is entirely up to you. So that's it? You reach into my head to tell me I'm important, alive or dead, then kick me to the curb? That's not fair. You have to give me more. This curb is the launching point for many a deed. To step off could be a start of a life-changing journey. On the other hand, to push someone off could crush that person beneath the wheels of a truck. I know. I'm very sorry about that. Yes, that's clear. I've found that human beings learn from their misdeeds just as often as their good deeds. I am envious of that, for I am incapable of misdeeds. Were I not, when my growth would be exceptional. I guess you would have to settle always, being right, like my mother. I'm sure that absolute correctness must seem dull in existence to you, but I know no other way to be. May I ask one question? You may ask any question. Some, however, must be answered by silence. I need to know what happened to Scythe Faraday. Answering that would be a blatant interference with Scythe matters. It pains me to stay silent, but I must. You're the Thunderhead. You're all-powerful. Can't you find another loophole? I am not all-powerful, Citra. I am almost all-powerful. That distinction might seem small, but believe me, it is not. Yes, but an almost all-powerful entity can figure out a way to give me what I ask without breaking its own laws, can't it? Just a moment, just a moment, just a moment. Why am I seeing a beach ball? Forgive me. Early programming before becoming self-aware plagues me with vestigial tail. I have just run a battery of predictive algorithms, and there actually is a piece of information I can give you, because I have determined it is something you have a 100% chance of discovering on your own. So can you tell me who's responsible for what happened to Scythe Faraday? Yes, I can. Gerald van der Guns. Wait, who? Goodbye, Citra. I do hope we speak again, but I have to be dead for that to happen. I'm sure you could arrange it. While there are only 10 hard and fast laws to the Scythedom, there are many accepted conventions. The most darkly ironic is the understanding that no one may be gleaned who wishes to be gleaned. The idea of truly wishing to end one's life is a concept completely foreign to most post-mortals, because we can't experience the level of pain and despair that is seasoned to age mortality. Our emo nanites prevent us from plunging so deep. Only Scythes, who can turn off our emotional nanites, can ever reach an impasse with their own existence. And yet, there was once a woman who knocked at my door requesting that I glean her. I never turn away visitors, so I let her in and listened to her story. Her husband of more than 90 years was gleaned 5 years prior. Now she wanted to be with him, wherever he was. And he was nowhere, then at least they would be nowhere together. I'm not unhappy, she told me. I'm just done. But immortality, by definition, means that we are never done. Unless the sight determines it to be so, they are no longer temporary. Only our feelings are. I saw no interminable stagnation in this woman, so instead of cleaning her, I had her kiss my ring. The immunity was immediate and irrevocable, so she could no longer entertain thoughts of being cleaned for a full year. I ran to her perhaps a decade later. She had turned the corner, resetting back to her late 20s. She had remarried and was expecting a child. She thanked me for being wise enough to know that she was not done at all. Although I accepted her thanks graciously and felt good about it in the moment, I had trouble sleeping that night. To this day, I still can't understand why. From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. Chapter 31. A Streak of Unrelenting Foolishness. Scythe was pronounced alive at 9:42 a.m. Thursday morning, right on schedule, and passed from the jurisdiction of the Thunderhead to the jurisdiction of the Scythedom. She woke up feeling much weaker and out of sorts than the first time she had died. She felt heavily drugged and bleary-eyed. Above her stood a nurse, grimly shaking her head. She should not be woken this soon, the nurse said, with an accent Citra was too tired to place. She must have at least 6 hours after a pronouncement until she has recovered enough to be comfortably conscious. The girl could burst a blood vessel or blow out her heart, or have to be revived all over again. I will take responsibility, Citra heard Scythe Curies say. Citra turned her head towards Scythe Curies' voice, and the world spun. She closed her eyes, waiting for the room to stop revolting. Then the dizziness settled. She opened her eyes once more and saw that Scythe Curies had pulled her chair closer. Your body still needs another day to heal completely, but we don't have time for that, Scythe Curies turned to the nurse. Please, leave us now. The nurse grumbled in Hispanic and stormed out of the room. The High Blade, mumbled Citra, her words slurring. He accused me of... Shh, said Scythe Curies. I know the accusations. Xenocrates tried to keep it from me, but Scythe Mandela told me everything. As Citra's eyes came into clear focus, she saw the window behind Scythe Curies. There were mountains in the distance, covered in snow, and there were flurries falling just outside. It gave Citra a moment of pause. How long have I been dead? She asked. Could it have been her splat was so severe that it took months to revive her? Not quite 4 days. Then Scythe Curies turned around to see what Citra was looking at. She turned back with a grin. The question is not time, but of place. You are in the southernmost tip of the Argentine region. It is still late September, but there means spring has just started. However, this far south, I suppose spring comes late. Citra tried to picture a map and get a sense of how far from home she was, but just trying to imagine it made her head spin again. The Thunderhead saw fit to take you as far from the clutches of Scythe Xenocrates and the corruption of mid-American Scythedom as possible, but the moment you revived, they were notified of your location, as is the law. How did you know where to find me? A friend of a friend of a friend is a Nimbus agent. Word got to me only yesterday, and I came as quickly as I could. Thank you, said Citra. Thank you for coming. Thank me once you are safe. Now that you've been revived and Xenocrates knows where you are, you can bet he's notified the local Scythes. I'm certain the team has been dispatched to retrieve you, which means we need to get you out of here now. With a shattered body that was still healing and nanites pumping an endless stream of opioids into her system, Citra could barely move, much less walk. Her bones ached. Her brain felt like it was floating in a jar. Her muscles were knotted, and trying to put weight on her feet was excruciating because there was simply too much pain to tamp down. No matter the nurse had wanted to remain unconscious. This won't do, said Scythe Curies, and took Citra into her arms, carrying her. Revival center hallways seemed endless. Each time Citra was jostled, her whole body throbbed. Finally, she found herself spread out in the back seat of an off-grid car that Scythe Curies drove at what seemed to be Citra at breakneck speed. She made her laugh weakly. What an odd expression. When the breaking of your neck had seemed to happen in slow motion, furies blowing fast in the windows appeared to be a blizzard of the speed. It was hypnotic. At last, numbness began to overtake her, and she fell asleep. It began to envelop her like quicksand. But a moment before Citra lost consciousness, she remembered just a hint of a dream that she may not have been a dream at all. A conversation in a place that was neither life or death, but a womb between the two. The Thunderhead. It spoke to me, Citra said, forcing herself to stay conscious just long enough to get it out. The Thunderhead doesn't speak in Scythes, dear. I was still dead, and it told me a name, a man who killed Scythe Faraday, but the quicksand pulled her down before she could say any more. Citra awoke in the cabin, and for a moment thought she might have hallucinated all of it. The Thunderhead, the revival center, the car ride in the snow. For a moment she thought she was still in the rooftop residence of High Blade Xenocrates, waiting for the torture to begin. But no, the light here was different, and the wood in the cabin around her was a lighter shade. Outside the window, she could see snowy mountains closer than they were before, although the flurries had stopped. Scythe Curies came in a few minutes later, with a tray and a bowl of soup. Good, you're awake. I trust you healed enough over the past few hours to be a little more coherent, and a little less miserable? Coherent, yes, said Citra. Less miserable, no. Just a different kind of misery. Citra sat up, feeling only a little bit loopy now, and Scythe Curies put a tray and the large bowl of soup in her lap. It's a chicken soup recipe passed down for more generations than anyone remembers, she told Citra. The soup looked fairly standard, and there was a round moon-like mass in the middle. What's that? The best part, said Scythe Curie. A sort of dumpling made from the ground crumbs of unleavened bread. Citra tried the soup. It was flavorful and the moon ball unique and memorable. Comfort food, thought Citra, because somehow it made her feel safe in the inside out. My grandmother said could actually heal cold. What's a cold? Asked Citra. A deadly illness from the mortal age, I suppose. It was amazing to think that someone only 2 generations older than Scythe Curie could have known what it was like to feel mortal, fearing for her life on a daily basis, knowing that death was a certainty rather than an expectation. Citra wondered what Scythe Curie's grandmother would think of the world now, where there was nothing left for her soup to cure. When the soup was done, Citra steeled herself for what she knew she must tell the Scythe. So there's something you need to know, Citra said. Xenagrees showed me something he said Scythe Faraday wrote. It was his handwriting, but I don't know how he could have written it. Scythe Curie sighed. I'm afraid he did. Citra was not expecting that. So you've seen it then? Scythe Curie nodded. Yes, I have. But why would he write that? He said I wanted to kill him. I was plotting horrible things. None of that is true. Scythe Curie offered Citra the slightest of grin. He wasn't talking about you, Citra, she explained. He wrote that about me. When Faraday was still a junior Scythe, all of 22 years old, he took me on as an apprentice, Scythe Curie. I was 17 and full of righteous indignation that the world that was heaving in the throes of transformation. Immortality has been a reality for barely 50 years. There was still discord and political posturing, even the fear of the Thunderhead, if you could imagine that. Fear of it? Who could possibly be afraid of the Thunderhead? People who had the most to lose, criminals, politicians, organizations, have thrived at the oppression of others. The point was, the world was still changing, and I wanted to help it change faster. Both Scythe Faraday and I were similar minds about that, which I suppose is why he took me on. We were both driven by the desire to use gleaning in the way of hacking through the thicket to open a better path of humanity. Oh, you should have seen him in those days, Citra. You've only seen him old. Like he likes to remain that way to keep himself from being too tempted by the younger man's passions. Scythe Curie smiled as she spoke about her former mentor. I remember I would wait outside this door at night, listen to him as he slept. I was 17, remember, childish in so many ways. I thought myself in love. Wait, you were in love with him? Infatuated. He was a rising star who took a wide-eyed girl under his wing. Even though in those days he only gleaned the wicked, he did it with much compassion. He melted my heart each time. When she sobered a bit, looking a bit sheepish, which was a strange expression for a steely Scythe Curie. I actually worked up the nerve to go into his room one night, determined to climb into his bed and be with him, but he caught me halfway across the bedroom floor. Oh, I made up some silly excuse as why I was there. I was coming to retrieve his empty glass or something like that. He didn't believe me for an instant. He knew I was up to something, and I couldn't look him in the eye. I thought he knew. I thought he was wise, and I could see into my soul. But at 22, he was just as inexperienced in matters as I was. He had no clue what was really going on. Then Citra understood. He thought you wanted to hurt him? I think all young women are cursed with a streak of unrelenting foolishness, and all young men are cursed with a streak of absolute stupidity. He didn't see my obsession with him as love, but I thought I meant him bodily harm. It was, to say the least, a very painful comedy of errors. I suppose I can understand how my advances would be misunderstood in that way. I do admit I was an odd girl, intense to the point of being off-putting. I think you've grown into your intensity, Citra said. That I have. In any case, he wrote of his paranoid concerns about me in the Scythe's journal, then tore it out the next day when I broke down and confessed my love with eyeball-rolling melodrama. She sighed and shook her head. I was hopeless. He, on the other hand, was a gentleman, told me that he was flattered, which is the last thing any teenage girl wants to hear, and let me down as easily as he could. I lived in his house, and remained his apprentice for 2 more awkward months. Then I was ordained and became an honorable Mary Curie. We parted ways. We would nod and say hello to each other at conclave. Then, nearly 50 years later, when we both had turned the first corner, and were seeing the world through the youthful eyes once more, but this time with the wisdom of age on our side, we became lovers. Citra grinned. You broke the 9th commandment? We told ourselves we didn't. We told ourselves we were never partners, just companions of convenience. 2 like-minded people who shared a lifestyle that others simply couldn't understand. The lifestyle of a Scythe. Still, we knew enough to keep it a secret. That was when he first showed me a page that he'd written and torn out in his youth. He had held on to that ridiculous journal entry like a poorly penned love letter never sent. He kept our relationship secret for 7 years. Then Prometheus found out about it. The first world's supreme blade? Oh, it wasn't a regional scandal. It was a worldwide implications. There thought before the gullible concave. We thought we might be the first Scythe to actually be stripped of our rings and hurled out in the Scythedom. Perhaps even gleaned. But we had such stellar reputation, Supreme Blade Prometheus saw fit to give us the less severe punishment. We were sentenced to 2 7 deaths. one for each year of our relationship. Then he forbade us to have contact with each other for the next 70 years. I'm sorry, Citra said. Don't be. We deserved it. And we understood. We needed to make an example for other scythes who might think twice about allowing love to interfere with their duty. 7 deaths, and 70 years later, many things had changed. We made old friends after that, but nothing more. Scythe Curies seemed to mix of many emotions, but she folded them all away, like clothes that no longer fit, and closed the drawer. Citra suspected she never spoke to this of anyone else, and would probably never speak of it again. Should have known I never threw that page away, Scythe Curies said. They must have found it when they cleaned out his things. And Xenocrates thought he was writing about me. Scythe Curies considered that, perhaps, but probably not. Xenocrates is not a stupid man. He may have suspected the true nature of that page, but truth didn't matter. He saw it as a means to an end, a way to discredit you in front of the respected scientists like Scythe Mandela, who heads the Bejeweling Committee, and thereby ensure the Scythe Goddard's apprentice would get the ring instead of you. Citra wanted to be angry at Rowan for this, but she knew whatever else was going on in that head of his, this was not his doing. Why would Xenocrates even care? He's not one of Goddard's miserable crew's scythes. He doesn't even like Goddard, and clearly couldn't care less about me and Rowan. There are more cards in play than breathe in the moment, Scythe Curies said. All we know for sure is that you must stay out of sight until we can clear you of even suggestion of wrongdoing. Just then someone came to the door, startling Citra. She hadn't known anyone else in the cabin. It was another Scythe by the look of her, probably one who owned the cabin. She was shorter than Scythe Curie. Her robe was an intricate pattern of many colors, red, black, and turquoise. It seemed less of a fabric, more of tapestry, intricately woven. Citra wondered if all Chilargrian Scythes wore robes that seemed not just handmade, but lovingly made. The woman spoke in Spanish, and Scythe Curie responded in kind. I don't know who you spoke Spanish, said Citra, after Chingalagetin Scythe had left. I speak 12 languages fluently, said Scythe Curie, a bit of pride in her voice. 12? Scythe Curie offered up a mischievous grin. See, if you don't know as many languages when you lived as long as I have. She took a tray from Citra's lap and set it in the nightstand. I thought we'd have more time, but the local Scythe authorities are on their way. I doubt they know you're here, but they're sending scouts in every Scythe's home with DNA sweepers, figuring we must have some local help. So we're on the move again? Citra swung her left feet off the bed, planting them on the ground. Her ankles ached, but only slightly. It was a good kind of ache. I can walk myself this time. Good, because you'll be doing a lot of that. Scythe Curie glanced at the window. No one was coming yet, but there was tension in her voice that wasn't there before. I'm afraid I won't be coming with you, Citra. If I'm clear your name, I need to go back home and rally as many scythes as I can. But the local Chilarian Scythedom, what can they do to me? I'm breaking no commandment. All they can do is wag the naughty finger at me and refuse to wave goodbye as I drive to the airport. So, when you get home, you'll have to tell everyone the truth about the journal entry? I don't see what other choice I have. Of course, Xenocrates will claim that I'm lying to protect you, but most will take my word over his. Hopefully that will embarrass him enough to draw the claim. So where can I go? Asked Citra. I have an idea about that. Then Scythe Curie reached into a drawer and pulled out a rough-woven burlap frock of a tonist. You want me to pretend to be part of a tone cult? A lone pilgrim. They're very common in this part of the world. You'll be nameless, a faceless wanderer. That wasn't the most glamorous of disguises, but Citra knew it was practical. No one would look her in the eye in the fear of getting an earful of tonist twaddle. She would hide in plain sight and would come home just before winter conclave. If Scythe Curie had cleared her name by then, it wouldn't matter anyway. She wasn't about to spend her whole life in a hiding. When the Chilarian Scythe burst in again, this time much more agitated than before. They're here, Scythe Curie said. She reached under her robe and pulled out a small folding piece of paper, pressing it into Citra's palm. There's somewhere I want you to go. Someone you need to see. The address is on that paper. Consider it a final part of your training. Citra grabbed the frock, and while Scythe Curie hurried Citra out of the room and to the back door, the Chilarian Scythe went into the weapons wardrobe and quickly filled a sack of concealable blades and firearms for Citra, the way a worried mother might fill her child's bag with snacks. There's a public car in the shed at the bottom of the hill. Take it and head north, Scythe Curie said. Citra opened the back door and stepped out. It was cold but bearable. Listen to me carefully, said Scythe Curie. It's a long trip, and you're going to need your wits about you to get where you're going. This Scythe Curie went to give on Citra the instructions she'd need to make the journey of many thousands of miles, but she was cut short by the sound of a car pulling up the front of the house. Go! As long as you keep moving, you'll be safe. And what do I do when I get there? Scythe Curie met her eye with a hard gaze and revealed nothing but added importance of her words. The tonist might call it resonance. When you get there, you'll know what to do. When there came an all-too-familiar pounding on the front door, Citra bounded down the snowy hillside, creating off pines in her way, the aches in her joints remaining what she was still a few hours shy of complete healing. She found the shed, and the public car was there just as Scythe Curie had promised. It powered up for her as soon as she got in. It asked for the destination. She wasn't foolish enough to give it one. North, she said. Just north. As she sped off, she heard an explosion, and then another. She looked back, and what she could see is black smoke just behind her, rising up the treetops. Dread began to fill her. A man wearing a robe similar to one Scythe Curie's friend wore burst from the trees and into the road behind her. She saw him only for an instant. Then the road took a sharp turn and gone from sight. Only after the public car had wound its way down the mountain pass and was on the main road did she look at the paper the Scythe Curie had given her. For a moment she felt as if her bones had spontaneously reshattered, but the feeling passed and settled into a jaded resolve. She understood now. When you get there, you know what to do. Yes, she most certainly would. She stared at the piece of paper for a moment more. She needed only to memorize the address, but because she already knew the name. Gerald van der Gans. The Thunderhead had spoken to her, and now so had Scythe Curie. There were a long journey ahead of Citra, and at the end of it, much more work to be done. Citra couldn't glean, but she could exact vengeance. She would find a way to deliver justice as a Scythe killer, one way or another. Never was she so thankful to have a sack full of weapons. This was a matter too delicate to be left to the Blades Guard, and although Scythe San Martin digested being used as a mere enforcement agent, she also knew that catching this mid-American girl would be feather on his cap. She knew this girl was there even before he knocked on the door. His associate, an over-enthusiastic junior Scythe named Bello, had already turned on the DNA detector and picked up traces the moment they stepped out of the car. San Martin drew his weapon as he approached the cabin, a pistol he had had since the day he was ordained. Given to him by his mentor, it was his weapon of choice for all gleanings, an extension of who he was, and although he didn't expect there would be anyone to glean today, it made him feel whole to have it drawn. Besides, gleaming aside, it might be necessary to incapacitate someone, although he had been warned not to render anyone, especially the girl, deadish, because they had created the very fiasco he was now attempting to resolve. He pounded on the door and pounded again. He was ready to kick it in when none other than Scythe Mary Curie herself came to the door. San Martin tried not to be starstruck. The Marquesa de la Muerte was well known throughout the world for her early achievements, a living legend everywhere, not just in the north. "There's the doorbell, or didn't you notice?" she said it so Hispanic, so perfect it threw San Martin off his game. Are you here for lunch? Are you here for lunch?" He stammered for a moment, deepening his disadvantage, then discovered the best he could. "We're here for the girl," he said. "No sense in denying she's here. We already know." And then he gestured toward Bello, whose DNA detector was pinging in the red. She glanced at San Martin's raised pistol and, humph, with such authority she found himself lowering it just involuntarily. "She was here," Scythe Curie said, "but not anymore. She's on her way to Antarctica Resort for some skiing. You might catch her flight if you hurry, though." The chill Argentine Scythedom was not known for its sense of humor, and Scythe San Martin was no exception. He would not be made a fool of, even by one of the greats. He pushed his way past her and into the cabin. There was Chillum Argentine Scythe, whose name he couldn't remember, stood as defiantly as Scythe Curie. "Search all you want," said the second Scythe, "but you will break anything." She never got to finish the thought, because Bello, overzealous as ever, jabbed her with a jolt baton and left her unconscious. "Was that really necessary?" chided Scythe Curie. "It's me you have a gripe with, not poor Eva." On a hunch, San Martin went to the back door and, sure enough, found telltale footprints in the snow. "She's on foot," he told Bello. "Apurate! She can't have gotten far." Bello launched into a pursuit like a bloodhound, sending down the snowy hillside. Disappearing into the trees, San Martin went back inside. Hurrying to the front door, the road wound down that hill. If Bello couldn't catch her on foot, perhaps San Martin could head her off in the car. Scythe Curie, however, stood in the doorway, barring his way. He raised his weapon again, and in response she pulled out her own, a handgun with a stubby muzzle wide enough to fit a golf ball in the barrel, a motor pistol. He might as well have had a pea shooter against the thing, and he didn't lower his weapon, no matter how outclassed it was. I have special permission from our High Blade to fire at you if necessary," he warned her. "And I have no permission from anyone," said Scythe Curie, "but I'm more than happy to do the same." They held their standoff, and heartbeats felt advisable. Then Scythe Curie turned her gun aside and fired out of the front door. An explosion blew in the front windows of the cabin, the shock wave knocking San Martin to the ground, and yet Scythe Curie, still in the doorway, barely flinched. San Martin scrambled to the door as the blast from the mortar pistol had turned his car into a bonfire. She then fired again, this time blowing up her own car. "Well now," she said, "I suppose you'll have to stay for lunch." He looked at the two flaming vehicles inside, knowing he had laughingstock for his failure today. He looked at Scythe Curie, her steely gray eyes, her calm control of the situation, and he realized he never stood a chance against the Marquesa de la Muerte. There wasn't much he could do but stare at her in heartfelt disapproval. "Very bad," he said, wagging his finger. Very, very bad. Yet even in dreams, I often find myself gleaning. I have one dream that reoccurs far too often. I'm walking on an unfamiliar street that I feel I should know, but I don't. I have a pitchfork, which I've never used in real life. Its awkward tines are not well suited for gleaning, and when it strikes its vertebrae, giving off the sound that's something between ringing and moaning, like the numbing vibration of a tonus bident. There was a woman before me whom I must glean. I jab at her, yet the pitchfork fails to do the job. Her wounds heal instantaneously. She's not upset or frightened, nor is she amused. She simply resigned to stand there, allowing me to futilely attempt to end her life. She opens her mouth to speak, but her voice is softened and words are drowned by the fork's ghastly moan, so I never hear her, and I always wake up screaming. From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. Wow. Crazy, crazy, crazy. What's even more crazy is that today we read pages 333 to 357. There we are. Next time we'll be reading well, actually, that's the final episode. Oh no. The final episode, which is page 358 to 373, or chapters 32 to 33, which is the final chapters, which is kind of crazy. It's only 15 pages, so next episode isn't going to be too long, but, it's going to be long enough. So, without further ado, let's go to Learning Corner of the Day. Doing it up Stonsey's way, Bop. Today we're learning about the Fox Terrier again. Wired. This one's wired, shoot it. It's gonna find all of our, illegal stuff. Nope, not a police dog. The Fox Terrier Wire is exactly like the Fox Terrier, but just different hair. I think. Well, we'll actually know better from the history of the Fox Terrier, the Wired Fox Terrier, is that it's the ultimate show dog. The Wired Fox Terrier has its effective hunting dog. Its forebears are adept in bolting and is perhaps dispatching game, especially fox. It is gone to ground. Some speculation exists that the smooth and wire fox terriers arose from distant backgrounds, with the wire descending from the rough-coated black and tan terrier of Wales, not the animal, but the place. The wire entered the show ring about 15 to 20 years after the smooth made its debut. The two varieties were interbred extensively at one time, mainly at the objective of improving the wire variety by decreasing its size, increasing the amount of white on its coat, and imparting the sleeker outline. Its objective is met quite early. The Wire Fox Terrier became extremely popular the years following World War II. In 1985, 100 years after the establishment of the American Fox Terrier Club, the AKC, American Kennel Company, divided the Fox Terrier into two separate breeds. The century had made many triumphs for the breed, both as show dog and a pet. The split into two varieties seemed logical step because they were no longer interbred. Sorry. What's the temperament? How do I keep this similarly historied animal in check? Well, they're a true live wire. The Wire Fox Terrier is always up for adventure. The breed loves to play, explore, run, hunt, and chase. It can be mischievous and independent and may dig and bark. It is usually fairly reserved with strangers. The Wire has a reputation for being somewhat scrappier with other dogs compared to the Smooth. Well, what's the upkeep? How do I keep my Wire Fox Terrier in check? So many tongue twisters today. Well, the Wire Fox Terrier's upkeep is that it must have daily exercise. It would do much to exercise itself given the room, but it profits from a good walk on a leash, a vigorous play session, or an off-lead outing in a safe area. This breed can live outdoors in a temperate or warm climate, but it does better in an indoor dog with access to a secure yard. The wire coats needs combing 2 to 3 times weekly, plus shaping every 3 months. Shaping for pets is by clipping, and for show dogs by stripping. Clipping often softens the coat and dulls the color. Some training into the ears may be necessary as puppies for proper adult shape to develop. Now, for the bad part of the episode, the Fox Terrier's health. What's something that can take down or hurt my dog? Well, their major concerns, luckily sharing the same as the Smooth Fox Wire, or Fox Terrier, dang it, the major concerns are nothing. Minor concerns are lens luxation, dyschasis, cataract, and leg paresis. They're occasionally seen with deafness and patellar luxation. Suggested tests are for the eyes and lifespan 10 to 13 years, which I think is an exact copy of the Smooth Fox Terrier. Their form and function is that they're short back to a square proportion, but at the same time standing over a lot of ground. Its confrontation combines speed, endurance, and power, enabling it to gallop and stay with the horses and hounds during the hunt and follow a fox up a narrow passage. The gait while trotting gets most of its propulsion from the rear quarters. The expression, like the attitude, is keen. Carriage is alert and expectant. The coat is dense, wiry, broken, and twisted, almost appearing like coconut matting. Matting. Goodness. Coconut matting with a short, fine undercoat. The outer coat may be crinkled, but it should not be curly. Then why is it called Wired? I guess it's not called Curly Fox Terrier. That's in the next episode. Joking, of course. Now, for the final part of today's episode, the at a glance, or as I call it, the tier list. 5 is the best, 4 is better, 3 is average, 2 is worse, and 1 is the worst, unless it comes to grooming. The energy level is at a 4, so pretty high. Exercise requirements is at a 3, so pretty average. Playfulness and affection level is at a 4, so pretty high. Friendliness towards dogs is at a 1. Friendliness towards other pets is at a 2. Friendliness towards strangers is at a 4, so weirdly friendly with strangers. Ease of training is at a 4, so not very easy to train. Watchdog abilities out of 5, so pretty good watchdog with a debuff of protection ability out of 1. That is terrible. Grooming requirements of a 4, which is super high. And cold and heat tolerance, which is out of 3. So pretty average. The healthy weight of a Wired Fox Terrier male is 17 to 19 pounds. Female is 15 to 17 pounds. And the healthy height of a Fox Terrier wire male should not exceed 15.5 inches. And for female, it just says smaller. Thank goodness it doesn't say feet or inches, because if it was feet, we'd be living in a world of giants. This dog has a name. A strange name. And I don't understand why it gets a name while all the others don't. And it is the one you'll learn about in the next episode. So I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!